We thank you for your time and attention today. It's always great to hear from Dan and Anthony from iSynergy, especially the topic of today, owning your audience and improving your ROI through SEO success. So with that, I will hand it over to Dan and Anthony from iSynergy. Take it away, guys.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jeff. This is Dan. I'm going to start off here. I'm going to give you guys kind of an introduction on what we're going to be talking about, and then Anthony's going to take over the second half of the webinar. We titled it Owning Your Audience and Improving Your ROI Through SEO Success. So basically what we mean by that, owning your audience, SEO is all about organic visibility, showing up high in the organic results in search engines. And what that means is it's a much more cost-effective way to garner your audience on the internet, as opposed to paid campaigns, whether they're on social media or through Google. Organic results are always the ultimate goal for internet marketers. All right, so search engine optimization. We're going to talk a little bit about what it is, and more so the metrics that you should be concerned with, what those metrics are, how to measure them, how to analyze them, and how to manage them. And those metrics, they're going to be the measurable things that you want to keep track of so you can track your progress, where you're starting, and the improvements that you can make with your SEO strategy. Then the second and third sections that Anthony's going to talk about, he's going to talk about some basic and some more advanced ways and tools that you can use to do that actual tracking and manage the results that you have. So he's going to talk about the analytical aspect of that, how to interpret the data that you see regarding your SEO metrics, and then some of the steps you can take to actively manage them and make sure that you are putting your best foot forward with your optimization. Okay, so SEO, what is it? Basically, it is, like the name implies, optimizing your website for the search engines. And that is where the goal of coming up high in the organic rankings comes into play. You want to make sure that your website is doing all the right things that are conducive to the search engines not only understanding what your website is, but finding it useful, finding it credible, and all those things are going to add up into higher results in the rankings. SEO's come a long way since the early days, in the late 90s when the internet and search engines were first starting to take off. It was more so about keywords. A lot of company strategies were as primitive as, if you were a Youngstown pizza company and you saw your competitor use the words Youngstown pizza 10 times on their page, you would try to use it 20 times on your page. That doesn't really fly anymore. Keyword stuffing can actually get you penalized through the search engines. So it's a lot more sophisticated than it used to be. There's a lot more factors in play that are going to help you rank better. So the metrics that matter, we boiled it down to these four here. And really, we probably could do entire webinars on some of these in and of themselves, but we're going to kind of try to talk to them on a high level to make sure that everyone is familiar with what these things are and how you can manage them. So we're going to talk about domain rating or domain authority, backlinks, the anchor text, and ranking keywords. The first three there, domain rating, backlinks, and anchor text, are pretty closely related. You'll see how they interplay as we get it further into the slides here. And then ranking keywords is kind of the end goal really of those three things, which is, the keywords that are relevant to your business, to your website. You want to make sure that you are ranking for as many of those as possible. Okay, so search engine optimization. Again, it is playing to the search engines what they want to see to analyze a website and make sure that it is relevant, because whether it's Google or any of the other search engines out there, Bing, Yahoo, etc., their ultimate goal is to serve the most relevant and useful results they can to their users. So if somebody is searching any particular term, they want to make sure that the results they are showing high on their search engine's results pages are the ones that users want to see, and they're going to find what they're looking for when they click on that link. So search engines utilize their own language to understand websites. And what we mean by that is it's really referencing the web crawlers, spiders, the internet bots that the search engine use to scour the internet and index all of the various websites and the content on those pages. And you want to make sure that you're familiar with the language that those search engine bots are using so that you can ultimately optimize your website. Again, that's what it's all about. You want to make sure that your website and the way it's structured is as friendly as possible to the search engines. So these web crawlers, the spiders that the search engines use, they pick up on and utilize various signals from the websites and the content on those websites and the way they're structured to understand the context of what that site's about, the types of queries that users may type into the search engine to find that page, and not only find it, but find it relevant. If somebody is using a particular term, they click on one of the top 3 results and they immediately bounce from that page because it wasn't what they were looking for. That's ultimately going to hurt you. That's not what the search engines want to see. They want to see people staying on that page because that means that they found what they're looking for. Again, how useful it is, that's the likelihood that the user is going to find what they were looking for when they initially made that search query. And how much better or worse the site and its content is compared to pages on competing domains. So, it's not, you're not operating in a vacuum on the internet. Obviously, there's millions and millions of websites out there, many of which may be your direct competitors. And, when Google narrows down the search results for a particular term, and it comes down to you and your 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 local competitors, whoever is better optimized for the search engines is the one that's going to show up at the top. Okay, so domain rating, you also see it referred to as domain authority sometimes, is basically a weighted score of your website based on primarily your backlink portfolio. The backlink portfolio, for anybody that's not familiar with that, is external websites that have a link pointing back to your website. Now that also can work internally as well. There's internal and external backlinks. We'll talk more about those in a moment. But the primary focus is typically how many external sites have a link pointing back to your site. And if those are high authority sites pointing back to your site, that helps your domain rating or your domain authority. If they're junk websites, if they're spam, that can cause some issues for your SEO, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. But the domain rating of the sites linking directly to your domain plays a big factor. And then also the unique website domains that those sites link to. So it's kind of like a web. For example, if Wikipedia has a link on a particular page that links to digitalmarketing.com, just making one up, and then that particular website has a link to iSynergy, that's very good because the authority from Wikipedia is getting passed through the intermediate website, which is then getting passed to iSynergy. So you have to look at not only the immediate primary connections that you have with links out there on those domains, but also the domains that they link to as well. Domain rating is calculated on a 0 to 100 scale, and it's relative to competing domains. So, for example, if a particular website has a domain rating of 30, after 2 months, they may see it drop by a point or two, but nothing has changed on that website. It doesn't necessarily mean something went wrong. It just might mean that the competing domains have improved. So again, it's a relative ranking. It's not, again, not operating in a vacuum. It's operating relative to the competing domains.
I think it's also important to just kind of drive home that fact that when you look at that number, that score, it's not, you shouldn't look at it as out of 100. So if you have a 25 domain rating out of 100, that doesn't mean, your website's crap or anything like that. It just means that relative to other people in your competing domain, um, that's where all of your competitors are kind of evening out around.
Yeah, and again, that's another thing that we really want to stress is that SEO, it's not just a singular game where you can only look at what you're doing. You also have to make sure you're looking at what your competitors are doing. And we'll talk about some of the tools later on that'll help you analyze that. Okay, so how do you access your domain rating? There's three primary tools that we use that give domain authority or domain rating scores. There's Moz, Ahrefs, and SEMrush. The factors that they use are very similar, but they're not identical. So you're not always going to see, your domain authority in your domain rating on all three of those tools showing up exactly the same. They could vary a little bit. It's similar to a consumer's credit score. You have TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. They all give you credit scores. You might have a 775 with one, and you might have a 763 with another. And sometimes it's confusing why that is. Well, they all accumulate their own data, and that data could be slightly different. And the formulas they use to actually calculate that score could be slightly different. So just keep that in mind, that they're not always going to be the same, and that's okay. Starting out, we recommend using Moz because it is a free tool. They have a lot of good things in there you can use to help assess exactly where you're at. And, if you're just beginning your SEO strategy, that's definitely what you want to do first, is see where you stand so you have a reference point with how your strategies and tactics are paying off. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit more about backlinks specifically. As I mentioned earlier, there's two types of backlinks. There's external and internal. An external backlink, to really define that a little bit better, when a website shows a link to your website anywhere within the content, sometimes it's just a directory, sometimes it could be within the paragraph of a blog. Actually have a couple examples here pictured on the right. These are snippets from our blog page. This blog, which was about examples of great website design ideas, you'll see there we have put an external link to Woven Magazine. So that text right there, click on that, and that directs to Woven Magazine's website. As an example of an internal link, which just points to another page within your website, down below, you can see we have links to some of our other blog titles. So they both play an important role. Sometimes internal backlinks get overlooked a little bit because people are so concerned about internal backlinks. Internal backlinks can also help because they help put your website in a little bit better context for the search engine's web crawlers. When they see the way that your website is structured with this link pointing to this page, they get a better feel for the relevance and the context of your site. All right, so how do you actually see the backlink profile that you have? Like the domain rating, these are the three main SEO tools that we use. And they use similar web crawlers to what the search engine use, except they're scouring the website for specifically backlinks in this scenario. So they're going to find all of the external sites that have a link pointing back to your site. And not only is it going to give you the number, which is an important factor, you want to keep track of the total number of backlinks you have, but also what is referred to as toxicity of those backlinks. And toxicity refers to basically the quality of those backlinks. So if you have, in this example you see on the right here, this little chart shows the breakdown of a particular website's backlink profile. And with only 3 toxic domains, that's absolutely nothing to worry about. It gives you the overall toxicity score there, rates it as low. We generally do not get concerned about that until that percentage of toxic domains gets in the range of 3%. And then you might want to take action on that, which we'll talk about here shortly. So the backlink audit, again, is going to give you the breakdown of your backlink profile. It's going to assess the toxicity. And to give an example of what toxicity really means, if you're seeing a lot of the backlinks you have are from spammy foreign websites, sometimes it's tough to tell where those come from. Sometimes it could be a targeted attack. I mean, it's a very underhanded tactic, but competitors may intentionally build a spammy backlink profile for another site in order to hurt their SEO rating. So the quality of the backlinks is very important. And for sites that do have a high toxicity, there's 2 main ways that you can go to address that. If it's on a smaller scale, there's 10, 15, 20 toxic links that you want to try to get rid of. You can manually do outreach. You can go to that site that is linking back to you, try to find some contact information on there, request that link is removed from the site, and that will help. Now, unfortunately, if it's spam, the odds that you're going to get a response are pretty low. So that may not always work, and you may have to go another route, which is running a toxic disavow campaign. And what a toxic disavow campaign does is it's actually telling the search engines that you, just like the name implies, you disavow these links that are coming to your site, because at some point you have no control over them. You cannot manually remove them yourself. You can request removal, but if they don't comply, the only thing you can do is disavow them. So what you'll do is identify those links that are toxic. You'll create a text file like you see on the right-hand side of the slide here, and then you will upload that text file into Google, and that will disavow those links. So you will not be penalized for the toxic backlinks. And it does take a little while for that to take effect, but give it, I believe, roughly 30 to 45 days, and that disavow should take effect. So if you wait, monitor your domain authority, your domain rating, after that 30 days, you should see an improvement from disavowing toxic links. And anchor text, directly related to backlinks. Anchor text is the physical text that shows up on the website in the form of the link to your site. So if you look at the photo that we have there on the right-hand side, you'll see the words "Contact Us" is highlighted. That is the backlink right there. So "Contact Us" is the anchor text. This provides some context for the search engines. It helps them understand what the backlink is, puts it, in context for what kind of content it may be pointing to. And there are several different forms, the way they're categorized, and there is an ideal ratio of the types of anchor text that you should have. It's not a hard and fast rule by any means. It's kind of just a general rule of thumb, but you do want to keep an eye on that. You want to make sure that you manage that to the extent that you can. And here is a breakdown of the specific types of anchor text that you'll see. The first one being organic or generic. And you can see that arrow is pointing to, it's a little small, but where it says "Shop Now" underneath the, looks like a pressure washer, 2 pressure washers. The "Shop Now" is the backlink, and that is the anchor text, and it's organic because it's just referring to a generic action. It might say "click here, see more info here, click here for more info." All those types of things are considered organic anchor text. Branded anchor text, pretty straightforward. It is just the exact brand name that the backlink is pointing to. So in this example here, it's pointing to apps, APPS. That is the name of a hard cider brand. And the anchor text that is displayed is the brand name. Naked anchor text is essentially just the URL of the website that the link is going to direct to. It's not disguised with any other text in any other form. It's just the naked URL. Exact match or money anchor text is, and also partial match, they're both related to keywords essentially. Exact match is typically just the keyword that particular link is going to be referencing. For example, this one here is web development. Obviously, you can assume that that's going to point to a page concerning web development and design, and the website there is probably making an effort to rank for that specific keyword. And partial match is basically just a slight variation on that, where it is the keyword in combination or in as a part of some other phrase or with some other term. Here it's SEO strategy, so SEO being the exact match term, and it's just has the term strategies added on. And then the final type of anchor text is actually image, where you're not going to see text. What you see here is an example of basically the code behind the image. But when you have just an image, could just be a picture of the company's logo or something related to the business that is going to direct to that business's website. All right, so the ratios that I mentioned, again, don't take this as an absolute, but these do provide some ranges that you want to try to make sure that you're within. For most websites, we found that this is the best practice. It's advisable to have this breakdown of the types of anchor text. You want the majority to be branded anchor text, your actual company name. And it should be pretty even split between organic and naked anchor text. About 20% of each is ideal. Less than 10% should probably be images. And then the lowest percentage you want to focus on would be exact or partial match. And the reason for that is sometimes the search engines don't like the fact that you're, again, trying to take advantage of keywords by using them as anchor text. But again, it's not the be-all, end-all rule. It's not an absolute, because different types of sites just lend themselves to being susceptible to different types of anchor text. For example, e-commerce sites tend to utilize more exact or partial match anchor text than just an informational website. So keep that in mind, that it's not a one-size-fits-all. Every type of site is going to be a little bit different. News and article sites tend to use partial match more often. So just keep an eye on that. You want to, if you see that one particular type of anchor text is lacking, if you're utilizing any kind of link building strategies through outreach, just keep that in mind when you are outlining the type of anchor text you want to show up for your external backlinks. Okay, so your ranking keywords. This is the end result of the things that we've talked about so far. Gathering quality backlinks, so your backlink profile, the anchor text associated with that backlink profile, and your domain rating are all going to help you rank for relevant keywords. And when Anthony gets into the tools for specifically ranking and managing your keyword rankings, you can get a better idea for what that means. In essence, identifying the relevant keywords that you should be ranking for, the keywords that your competitors may be ranking for that you're not. Definitely, the most important aspect that you want to keep an eye on, because again, that is the end result that you're hoping for, is ranking for those keywords so that when searchers are typing them in, you're the one showing up. So,
Dan, thank you.
yes.
This is a great time to actually introduce a question from the audience.
Sure.
They want to know how to find competing domains. So in speaking to competition, many of us are aware of our competition, but are there tools to find competition that you're unaware of, especially for certain keywords?
Yeah, absolutely. The tools that we've talked a little bit about so far, SEMrush, Ahrefs, and Moz, you can definitely assess where you stand relative to competing domains. There are different features you can utilize within those platforms to assess, again, the keywords that you're ranking for that your competitors might not be, but also just to identify competing content and competing domains that you should be comparing yourself to.
And including that, a quick and easy free way to get started is to kind of just look at what keywords you're currently ranking for and keywords that you might not be positioned well currently for, and just kind of just do Google queries on those keywords, because just looking at the organic search results is going to give you a ton of information there as well.
Yeah, sometimes it's as simple as that. Not only utilizing the tools that we're talking about, but also, once you find those keywords that you know are important to your website and your business, just manually going through the Google search results and checking out the competition, seeing who's ranking, checking out their content. And, obviously you don't want to copy content, but it gives you a jumping off point for things that you should be emulating and strategies that you should be implementing.
Guys, is there any relevance these days to kind of how deep into the pages you are? So because of mobile experiences and desktop experiences being different, often it was, a second or third page result on the SERP. Does that matter anymore? I'm just kind of curious about that.
It's less about pages now. It's mainly just about the position that you're in on the search results. Although even though it's not technically pages anymore, when you look at a Google search results, it still kind of follows that similar format. It goes about 8 to 10 organic positions per, I suppose, load on that load more results button at the bottom.
Right. So there's definitely competitive insights deep into the 20s, 30s, and 40s, right? Or even more?
Yeah, I would say up to 100.
Wow.
There are competitive insights on there. But as the further you go down, the less relevant your results are going to be still.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So for brand new websites, if Google or the other search engines have not indexed your site yet, it can take a little bit longer for those rankings to take effect and for you to really be able to get an accurate assessment of where you stand. And for existing websites, when you are implementing strategies to build your keyword rankings, it still does take a little bit of time. It's not immediate. You have to exercise some patience and kind of just wait for your strategies to pay off, because again, it does take a little while for the web crawlers to properly index your sites and analyze the content. All right, so the last point on this slide is making sure to rank not just for quantity, but also quality of keywords, primarily quality, actually. So actually just had an example where we were assessing one of our clients and they had lost some keywords. So they were ranking for slightly fewer keywords, but their average position on the results pages had improved. So the total number of keywords that you rank for is less important than the relevance and quality of those keywords, because you actually don't want to be ranking for irrelevant keywords. It happens sometimes for odd reasons, but if somebody is searching a term that has nothing to do with your business, or it's not really, you're not going to provide them any useful results for that search term, and they go to your site, they don't see what they want and they bounce immediately. Again, that's not a good thing. That doesn't look good to the search engine. So identifying the important keywords and focusing on the relevant keywords is more important than how many keywords you have. All right, so to get a little bit deeper into the analysis of the keywords that you rank for, you typically have to use a paid tool. Again, any of those three are very reputable, give a lot of good insights. And as I mentioned, I mean, we can really only touch on a small fraction of what you can actually do within those platforms to assess the keywords. And it can be very insightful if a business owner or whoever runs the website has never done that before. You can get a lot of good information about keywords that are going to help you show up relative to your competition and things that you should be focusing on. And you can connect your Google Search Console to your domain for free. There's a lot of good insights you can get from there. You're not going to get as much keyword analysis as you can with those paid tools, but it does give you some basic information that can be very useful. It's going to show you some insights on your URL performance, the indexability of your pages, and the keywords where your site showed up. So let's take a look at what that looks like. This is the Google Search Console, and you can see this is over a 3-month period. If you look at the filters at the very top of the console there, this is web searches over the last 3 months. And highlighted in blue, you'll see the total clicks. So that's the total number of organic clicks that this website got over the 3 months. The purple box shows the total impressions, and that is the number of times that a user saw that website in the search results. So if you're on the first page, every time somebody makes that search, that counts as an impression. If you're on the third page, if the searcher doesn't find what they want on the first page, they click to the second page and they click to the third page, then that registers as an impression. Wherever you're showing up, if they view that page of the search results, that's counted as an impression for this purpose. And the average position is going to show you, obviously, just like it implies, the average position for your searches within the search engines. And then down below, you can see the specific queries that you are ranking for and where you're showing up. The one that's highlighted here, you can see C8 accessories. You can see how many clicks you got on your site for that search term over these 3 months, and then also the number of impressions that you got. So again, it's some more high level information, not as granular as you can get with some of those paid tools. But again, definitely a tool you should be using because again, it's free.
It's a great first step for small businesses. It's something that has gotten easier to set up as long as you have Google Analytics set up on your site. And it's, like Dan said, it's free. It's relatively straightforward. So it's a great initial tool to use when assessing your SEO on your website.
And again, this is all focused on the organic information. So that's just, your SEO strategies, how they're paying off with your organic visibility and your organic search results.
And then going on past that, extending that Google Search Console further, I'm going to be talking about how you link that to your Google Analytics account. So you can see all of that information in a single view, in a single dashboard. And then also what types of Google Analytics metrics that you should be looking at when assessing your organic traffic and the results from your SEO strategies. So when you first go into Google Analytics and want to link your Search Console account, you're going to go into the settings. That's at the bottom left navigation bar. There's going to be the property tab, and then under there, there's going to be a little all products setting. When you click on that, it'll be Search Console will be under your unlinked products. You'll have to scroll down a little bit. And when you click link Search Console, it's going to take you to this specific view at the top. You'll just click the add button. And as long as your Google Search Console account for your domain is the same as your analytics account, it'll be able to automatically pull up your domain that you have linked for Search Console, and you'll be able to just click and you'll be able to save it, and it'll automatically connect it to your Google Analytics account. And then this is what it looks like within Google Analytics. So it gives you a lot of the same information that you can see in just a Search Console dashboard. It just brings it all into Google Analytics. That way you're not bouncing back and forth all the time to see that information. Plus, it's a lot easier to see historically, what you've ranked for in the past, what your average position is in the past, or do comparisons such as, where were you positioned on the SERP in September compared to October. So it's a lot of powerful insight, and it brings it all into a single dashboard, makes it simple to use. And we highly recommend that you do this when you're starting out assessing your SEO strategy to see just kind of where you're ranking. And then moving along with that, looking at your Google Analytics data and looking at specific metrics related to your organic traffic and visibility. So metrics that you should be looking at when you're in Google Analytics specifically are your organic sessions, which is your traffic, and then organic users from that traffic, and then organic user engagement. So bounce rate, average pages viewed each visit, your average session duration, which is how long someone spent when they visited your site once. And then, of course, your organic conversions. So anything that your business considers a conversion on your website, whether that's a lead, a sign up for information or a newsletter, purchases, subscriptions, anything like that. Really the ultimate goal of starting an SEO strategy and honing in your organic audience. So how to just specifically view all that information in one view? First, you're going to want to go into your acquisition report, and you're going to want to switch from viewing all users to just viewing organic traffic from that acquisition report. It's pre-built within Google Analytics, so it should be starred already, and you should be able to just click it and run with it. And then once you do, you're going to be able to get a really honed in, defined look at all of your organic traffic. And you can see every metric that's relevant to understanding that audience. So you'll be able to see, users, how many sessions organic traffic brought, what's the bounce rate of that, what pages how many pages they viewed each visit, how long their visit was, and how many conversions they generated from that channel alone. And you can see from this example here that this website over the past October has seen over 34,000 visitors finding them organically. It's generated over $120,000 in revenue from this channel alone. And they also keep visitors engaged through organic traffic, with a high amount of pages viewed each visit, and then above average session duration. So you can tell that this website has a really honed in organic audience. And it also goes to show you just the real value that SEO and organic traffic can bring to your website, because if you see here, the revenue and the amount of traffic that this channel has brought alone is over a third of all of their traffic and revenue. So it's really powerful to see the returns that you can get from organic traffic and properly implementing an SEO strategy on your website. So when you're looking at all this data, you're going to want to assess it, and you're going to want to ask questions and try and diagnose any potential issues or opportunities for growth that you have. So you're going to want to look at your organic traffic compared to your other acquisition channels. That's going to include, revenue, user engagement, traffic, the average order value of each channel. You really want to stack it up against any other paid acquisition channel you have, just to see any opportunities for growth or any steps you might be missing in that process. So are people visiting your site from a particular term or a set of terms? So let's say you're seeing that, a lot of people are visiting and converting from your website from a term that you don't utilize that often on your website, so you're ranking low for it. Well, then maybe that's an opportunity for you to grow, start kind of weaving that term or set of terms into your website so you can rank better for it and therefore get more conversions for it, more organic conversions from it, and kind of grow your revenue and traffic as a result. And then on the other side of the coin, are there organic visitors dropping off before completing a conversion, whether that's a purchase, a lead, or a sign up, or anything like that? And then you can kind of compare it to your other acquisition channels and see, you know, where's the drop off? Is there some sort of friction in terms of, you know, your website speed on a particular device or anything like that? And we'll talk about that more in a second here when we go over audits. So initial SEO steps that you can take as a business owner, conduct SEO audits to get a holistic view of where your website stands. You don't want to start without knowing where you stand. That's a definite. So 2 audits that we always recommend are a technical SEO audit and then an on-page SEO audit. So the technical SEO audit is a comprehensive look at your website from a development or a backend standpoint. So you're looking at things like, is your website HTTP secure? And that's that little lock that you see on the top left of your address bar. That's just a security feature. It's a standard on Google, on all browsers. Page load speeds, both on desktop and mobile. How fast your site loading. The longer it takes for your site to load, the worse Google is going to identify your page as not being valuable for visitors, and it's also going to discourage visitors from visiting your website. If it takes 25 seconds to load your page, well, they're going to bounce off in the first 5 seconds and then go to a different page that loads faster. Image load speeds and sizing. Are you using too high of a resolution image? Is it slowing your site down? Again, goes to page load speeds. Properly formatted XML sitemap, mobile friendliness, and unused unnecessary code. So are there things in there that's hindering your site from being indexed? Is it hindering crawlers from being able to understand and navigate all of the content that's on your website? And is it making it harder for visitors to reach your website and thus increasing your bounce rate and causing your competitors to gain an advantage there? So how to assess these technical factors? You can conduct a report through Lighthouse by Google. It's just a Chrome extension. It's made by Google. It's the standard. It's what we utilize internally. It analyzes several factors that can affect your website, including page loads and unused CSS code and everything like that. And then again, you can look further into your page load speeds in Google Analytics, where you can view more granular data on those metrics, such as average page load, average redirection time, average domain lookup time, and so on. And this can really help diagnose issues because you can look over a long period of time your average page load speed, and if you can see any spikes, or if there's a certain spike in a specific browser, like if you notice that Firefox has an above average page load time, then you know that there's some issues there that need to be diagnosed and fixed. And some best practices to take along with that would be that web pages should load up in around 3 seconds or less. The faster your site loads, the longer someone's going to spend on it. On the other side of the coin, the slower your site loads, the less someone's going to spend on it. They're going to bounce immediately and they're going to go to a competitor instead that has a faster website. You're going to want to keep your images light. So don't upload high resolution images as often as possible. Use a resizing tool if necessary. If you don't have the ability to resize that image natively or in a different or in Adobe or anything like that, there's tons of tools out there that you can use to shrink the image size down and the file size so that images are snappy to load, so it improves your speed on your site. And then again, if you're using a builder like WordPress or Shopify or anything that allows you to use plugins, you're going to want to check those. There are instances where you may have too many plugins on the site. When you start to have too many, it could bloat your site, and it could really affect your load speed. And then some plugins may have a greater effect than others. So it's definitely something that you have to audit and assess when you're going into your website and trying to improve your page load speeds in your organic traffic. And then the other side of the coin, there's the on-page SEO audit. So that's understanding the content and the markup of your pages. And this is more of like a front end look of your website. So factors that you're going to look at here are headers, which are H1s, H2s, H3s, and so on. And then there's your meta description, your title tag, and then your image alt text. So typically how this is going to show up is going to be inside your code. It deals with the front end of your website, but you're still going to have to look at the code unless you use a Chrome extension like this one. This is SEO Meta in one click. This is one we use in-house. There are tons of them out there. So just find a repeatable one and you can go on and use it. It grabs all of that on-page info in just one click, makes it easy to see. So you can access the title, the meta, the headers, and the alt text of your web page. And it'll also, with certain Chrome extensions, also provide some best practices alongside what it pulls up for those as well. And then when you click on that Chrome extension, you're going to see what it looks like here. On the top, it'll tell you, for instance, this is a homepage on Lowe's. So it's going to tell you the title, the description, the URL. It's going to tell you how many headers are on the site. And then if you click on that headers tab, it'll show you what each header actually is. So some best practices for that as well. Title tag and meta description. There's going to be a certain point in the search engine where it's going to cut it off after a certain character count. So you definitely want to stay within these character count limits. For title tags, keep it under 60 to 65 characters. That way, you know, if you have it over 65 characters and someone's searching for that web page, it's going to cut off most of your text, or Google is going to manipulate it and utilize something else since it's too long. So to have the most control over that, keep it under 60 to 65 characters. Same with the meta description. You're going to want to keep that between 150 to 165 characters, so you prevent that cutoff as well. Headers, you should only use one H1 per page, and then you should use multiple H2s, H3s, and H4s, and so on. A best practice generally for those lower level headers is to utilize them in a way that organizationally makes sense for your web page. And then image alt text. That's the text that's associated with each image on your site. And instead of using, you know, the standard image 101.png file that usually that alt text comes as a default, definitely go in and make it as descriptive as possible, and that helps the search engines out. It'll help you rank better for those images. So let's say you have an image of a coffee mug on a table. You're going to want to write an alt text that says, you know, black table with a coffee mug on top of it. Something like that, something that's really descriptive and easy to read for the search engines. And that kind of covers all of our, you know, best practices and things to do when you're first starting out with your SEO and assessing your strategy as a business owner. And that's all of what we have. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to give a shout now.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This is really great information. Good tactical, functional information to help us all generate organic leads. A couple questions we have. So do you recommend when building out content that's, you know, keyword-centric content, does that happen typically in product pages or more of a blog scenario?
Keyword focused content can be either product or blog specific. It'll just depend on the goal of the website. If it's an e-commerce, we would more than likely recommend that you utilize the product page to optimize those keywords as long as it makes sense um, for what you're trying to rank for.
Yeah, the nice thing about having a blog section on your website is it gives you a lot of freedom to kind of explore the various keywords that you think you should be ranking for and create a blog that is focused on those keywords. So, I mean, products, they are what they are. And yes, you can make sure you include the relevant keywords in the description of that product. But blogs typically can be a little bit longer form where you have more flexibility to focus on the keywords that you want.
Right. That's good. And they even take shape of, Google is the place to provide answers to questions. And so a lot of blogs can literally be answers to questions. And that's how anyone that's starting off with a blogging strategy, answer the most common questions you get and do it in a, kind of a narrative format. So that's good. Yeah. So that you guys would recommend the way to move the needle more quickly is probably to get a blog strategy going, correct?
Yep.
Great. And then as it relates to conversion, so if you optimize, say, a page or a blog for success around a certain keyword, if someone searches and clicks on your link to land on your website, how often do you recommend conversion elements? Like, what's the strategy around getting people to take the next step once they read the information that they were looking for?
You typically want to place call to actions on those pages. So for instance, if you're trying to rank for, trying to think of a good example. If you're trying to rank for
linear actuators.
Linear actuators, there we go. Then if you want to write a blog around a question related to linear actuators to try and get people on your site, then we would strategically place call to actions throughout that page. Whether that's on the sidebars or within the content itself, subtly inside like paragraphs, we would do that to try and kind of push people outside of that blog onto some other part of your website to kind of funnel them to become a lead or to a product page so that they can go and purchase and then convert.
Right. Anthony, I like how you said subtlety, because you're right. The Vegas style of click here with lights and flashing,
right,
it turns a lot of people off. So I really like the fact that you use the word subtly capture. That speaks a lot for the digital strategy that's required these days.
Right. You definitely want to have engaging content that isn't salesy, but can still take them off that first initial landing page and navigate them further down your funnel.
Okay, great. I think at this point, through the conversation, we've cleared most of the questions out. So given that we are close to going on the hour, unless you have any other concluding statements, questions, can you find, this will be posted in its entirety. And do you guys want to give contact information or any parting thoughts before we close up today?
I just actually like to touch on one thing just to kind of tie it together with that last question. It focuses back on, what the premise of this webinar was, which was increasing your ROI by getting conversions from organic leads. Again, where you're owning your audience, you're not renting a Facebook audience by paying for a campaign. It's all about being as cost effective as you can to, get those conversions, whether it's a sign up or a purchase or whatever the case may be. Organic leads are always going to be your highest ROI option.
Dan, that's a great point. It's investing in your own house, right? So you could go have a party at, a place that you rent, and that's kind of the equivalent of social media, but you do have to go home at some point and those guests leave and the place could shut down. So, I'm stretching this analogy a little bit, but the more you invest in your own home infrastructure, meaning your own website, the more control you'll have over time and get people to, you won't be kind of set up or impacted by the nuances and vagaries of social media websites or social media platforms, where it is all about bringing traffic home to your own website and then keeping them on your website and sending them down conversion paths. So yep. I'm really glad you said that, Dan. That's a great point.
Yep. And then one other quick thing. I mean, SEO, probably should have mentioned it earlier, but people should know that it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. I mean, it's a constant monitoring. Things change. Google changes their algorithms and the way they index sites. So it's just something that you have to stay on top of because it's a constantly evolving game, and you want to make sure that you're always staying in front.
Excellent. Good. Well, I think at this point we should conclude the webinar. So you can we want to thank Dan and Anthony from iSynergy for their time today and their knowledge and insights. And you can find them at iSynergy.io. And if you have any questions after the fact, you can send them to me or reach out to the guys directly, and we'll make sure we get you taken care of. So thanks again for your time today. Great insight you shared, and we appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell for notifications. And also make sure to connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. For all of your business news, visit businessjournaldaily.com. For all of your arts and entertainment news, go to afterhoursyoungstown.com.